Listen carefully. This is not motivation. This is conditioning. There will be a moment in your life when everything collapses at once. Plans fail, people disappear, certainty evaporates, and the ground you stood on gives way without warning. In that moment, the world does not care about your intentions. It watches your reaction. It measures your composure. It decides whether you are fragile or formidable. Most men panic when structure disappears. They rush to explain themselves. They seek reassurance. They scramble to be understood. That instinct feels human, but it is also the exact point where power is lost. Emotion leaks information. Reaction exposes weakness. The man who reacts first hands control to the environment. Machiavelli understood this long before modern psychology named it. Chaos does not destroy strength. Chaos reveals it. When order breaks, masks fall. Under pressure, people stop performing and start exposing who they really are. The weak become loud. The desperate become impulsive. The insecure become emotional. The cold-minded man does none of this. He observes. He withholds. He lets others reveal themselves first. You were never meant to feel calm before the storm. That is a fantasy sold to comfortable people. You were meant to learn calm inside the storm. That is where real strength is forged. Calm under pressure is not personality. It is training. It is a discipline built by refusing to let external disorder dictate internal behavior. Here is the first law you must internalize. Your emotional response is the last territory you truly control. Lose control there, and everything else follows. When things fall apart, do not rush to fix them. Do not rush to speak. Do not rush to defend your image. Silence buys leverage. Stillness buys clarity. Coldness buys time. And time, in moments of collapse, is power. The mind that stays cold does not deny fear. It refuses to obey it. Fear becomes data, not command. Stress becomes information, not urgency. While others burn energy trying to restore comfort, you conserve energy to restore position. This is how composure turns into advantage. Mark this shift now. Comment the phrase, "I remain cold," to seal it mentally. Not for attention, for conditioning. Because from this point forward, we are not building confidence. We are building immunity. Number 1. Emotion is the enemy's entry point. Emotion is not your enemy. Uncontrolled emotion is. This distinction is where most men fail. They believe strength means feeling nothing, so they suppress. Suppression leaks. It leaks through tone, posture, impatience, overreaction. The world reads it instantly. The cold man does not suppress emotion. He contains it. Containment is control. Control is power. Every emotional reaction is information. When you react, you announce what matters to you. You reveal where you are attached. You show where you can be pressured. This is why skilled manipulators never need to ask questions. They provoke and observe. A raised voice, a sudden silence, a defensive explanation. These are tells. And the moment you show a tell, the game shifts against you. Most men are emotionally transparent without realizing it. They think honesty is strength. In reality, predictability is vulnerability. When people can forecast your reactions, they can steer you. When they know what angers you, they can trigger you. When they know what you fear losing, they can threaten you. The cold man closes these doors by mastering his reactions before mastering anything external. Understand this law. Whoever reacts first loses leverage. Reaction is submission to stimulus. It means something outside you dictated your internal state. That is not strength. That is conditioning, and usually not by you. The world trains reactive men to be useful, obedient, and controllable. The cold man retrains himself. When pressure hits, the body screams urgency. Heart rate rises, breath shortens, muscles tense. The mind floods with narratives demanding action. This is biology, not failure. The mistake is obeying it. The moment you pause instead of react, you interrupt the cycle. That pause is the space where power enters. In that space, you choose response instead of impulse. Impulse feels decisive. It is not. Impulse is panic disguised as confidence. The man who reacts quickly under pressure believes he is taking control, but he is actually surrendering it. He is letting the situation set the tempo. Tempo decides outcome. The cold man slows the tempo deliberately. He forces the situation to wait. Situations hate waiting. People hate it even more. Silence is especially powerful here. Silence creates psychological vacuum. Most people rush to fill it because silence forces self-awareness. When you stay quiet, others talk. They explain. They justify. They contradict themselves. You gain information without effort. Silence costs you nothing and gives you everything. This is why calm men are often underestimated and why they win later. Emotional control also changes how others treat you. People test boundaries unconsciously. They push lightly, then harder, watching reactions. When reactions are absent, tests stop. When reactions are emotional, tests escalate. The cold man teaches others how to treat him by what he refuses to respond to. Ignored behavior dies. Rewarded behavior repeats. This is where masculine stoicism becomes practical, not philosophical. Stoicism is not endurance for endurance's sake. It is strategic non-reaction. You do not deny pain. You deny pain authority. You do not deny anger. You deny anger control. Emotions are weather. You are the structure. Weather passes. Structures remain. There is also a darker advantage most men overlook. Emotional control protects you from self-betrayal. Under emotional pressure, men say things they cannot take back. They make commitments they regret. They burn bridges that would have collapsed on their own if left alone. The cold man lets situations finish themselves. Many problems solve themselves if you stop interfering emotionally. Notice how often emotional men chase resolution. They want closure. They want reassurance. They want certainty. This chasing weakens position. The cold man does not chase emotional resolution. He allows ambiguity. Ambiguity terrifies the emotionally dependent and empowers the emotionally disciplined. The man who can live without immediate answers cannot be controlled through urgency. Over time, emotional discipline changes your internal identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who must react to survive. You start seeing yourself as someone who chooses when to engage. This shift is subtle but permanent. Once installed, panic loses credibility. Fear becomes advisory, not commanding. Stress becomes manageable instead of overwhelming. This is how untouchable men are formed. Not through dominance displays, not through intimidation, but through internal command so consistent that the world adjusts around it. When people cannot move you emotionally, they either respect you, avoid you, or reveal themselves. All three outcomes work in your favor. Coldness also protects your long-term thinking. Emotional decisions optimize for immediate relief. Cold decisions optimize for position. Position compounds. Relief fades. The man who chooses position over relief wins slowly and permanently. He builds a life that does not require constant emotional firefighting. Remember this: the world does not attack your strength directly, it attacks your reactions. If it can control how you feel, it can influence what you do. Emotional mastery shuts this attack vector down completely. Once closed, manipulation becomes obvious, pressure becomes manageable, chaos becomes navigable. This is not about becoming emotionless, it is about becoming unmovable. In the next section, we will go deeper into how pressure itself can be deliberately used to harden your nervous system, and why repeated exposure to controlled stress creates a man who does not flinch when everything around him starts to burn. Number 2, pressure as a training environment. Pressure is not an accident in your life. It is not random. It is not unfair. Pressure is the environment in which men are sorted. Some crack, some adapt, some harden. The difference is not talent or luck. It is interpretation. The man who sees pressure as a threat tries to escape it. The man who sees pressure as training uses it to become lethal. Most people spend their lives avoiding stress. They seek comfort, stability, reassurance, and predictability. Comfort feels safe, but it quietly erodes capacity. Muscles weaken without resistance. Minds soften without challenge. When real pressure arrives, the untrained collapse, not because the pressure is extreme, but because they have never been conditioned to carry weight. The cold man understands this early. He does not romanticize suffering, but he respects it. He knows pressure exposes weaknesses that comfort hides. Stress reveals cracks in discipline, attention, and emotional regulation. These cracks are not shameful. They are diagnostic. Pressure shows you exactly where to train. Your nervous system is not fixed, it is programmable. Every time you encounter stress and respond with composure instead of panic, you rewrite its rules. You teach your body that threat does not equal collapse. This is how resilience is built, not through thinking, but through repetition. Calm under pressure must be rehearsed until it becomes default. Most men allow pressure to hijack their physiology. Breathing becomes shallow, thoughts accelerate, the body prepares for escape or aggression. This response is ancient and it is not wrong, but it is outdated for modern psychological warfare. The man who can override this reflex gains advantage instantly. He breathes slower while others breathe faster. He thinks longer while others rush. He waits while others scramble. Slowness under pressure is dominance. It signals internal surplus. Only someone who is not overwhelmed can afford to move slowly. This unsettles people. They expect urgency. They expect reaction. When it does not arrive, they begin doubting themselves. Doubt spreads faster than fear. While they question, you calculate. Pressure also strips away self-deception. In calm conditions, men lie to themselves easily. They overestimate discipline. They underestimate fragility. Under stress, fantasy collapses. What remains is real capacity. The cold man welcomes this exposure. He would rather know the truth early than be surprised later. Truth is uncomfortable, but it is upgradable. Illusion is comfortable and lethal. There is a crucial rule here. Never try to perform under pressure before you have learned to stabilize under pressure. Performance requires bandwidth. Panic consumes it. Stabilization comes first. Control breathing, control posture, control speech. These are anchors. When these are stable, thinking returns. When thinking returns, strategy becomes possible. Pressure also reveals attachment. Notice what stresses you disproportionately. That is where you are invested. That is where leverage exists. This is not something to deny. It is something to manage. Detachment does not mean apathy. It means reducing the emotional charge so decisions are not distorted. You do not remove attachment. You subordinate it. Repeated exposure to controlled pressure builds something rare, psychological calluses. What once felt overwhelming becomes familiar. Familiarity reduces fear. Reduced fear increases clarity. Over time, situations that paralyze others barely register to you. This is not because you are fearless. It is because fear no longer dictates behavior. The world is full of men who appear confident until pressure arrives. Then their confidence evaporates. Cold men are the opposite. They may appear unremarkable in calm conditions. Under pressure, they sharpen. They become precise. Their words reduce. Their movements become economical. Their focus narrows to what matters. This is the difference between surface confidence and structural strength. Pressure also teaches patience. Under stress, the urge to act is intense. Doing something feels better than doing nothing, but action taken to relieve anxiety is rarely effective. The cold man learns to delay action until clarity emerges. This delay is not indecision, it is filtration. Many problems collapse on their own when not fed emotional energy. Another overlooked benefit of pressure is boundary enforcement. Under stress, you see who drains you and who stabilizes you, who adds noise and who adds clarity, who respects your space and who invades it. Pressure clarifies social value quickly. The cold man adjusts access accordingly, without explanation or drama. Pressure also humbles ego. Ego wants control, recognition, and immediate success. Pressure denies these. If you cling to ego, pressure will break you. If you let ego dissolve, pressure will sharpen you. This is why humility is not weakness, it is flexibility. Flexible structures survive earthquakes, rigid ones shatter. As you train under pressure, your internal dialogue changes. Instead of asking, "How do I make this stop?" you ask, "What is this teaching me?" Instead of, "Why is this happening?" you ask, "What does this reveal?" These questions transform stress from enemy into instructor. Instructors are demanding, but they are useful. Eventually, something critical shifts. Pressure no longer feels personal. It feels mechanical, like weight on a bar, like resistance in training. You stop interpreting stress as judgment. You see it as load. Load can be managed. Load can be increased gradually. Load builds capacity. This is why men who have survived real pressure become calm in situations that terrify others. They have been here before. Their nervous systems recognize the terrain. Familiarity breeds composure. Composure breeds authority. Authority does not need to announce itself. Understand this final principle. Pressure will either condition you or consume you. There is no neutral outcome. Avoided pressure accumulates. Faced pressure educates. The cold man chooses education every time. In the next section, we will examine how silence, distance, and withdrawal under pressure function as strategic tools, and why stepping back at the right moment often creates more power than any direct move ever could. Number 3. Silence, distance, and strategic withdrawal. Most men misunderstand silence. They think silence means weakness, avoidance, or defeat. In reality, silence is one of the most aggressive psychological positions you can take when it is chosen, not forced. Silence is refusal, refusal to react, refusal to explain, refusal to feed chaos with your energy. And when you remove your energy, situations either correct themselves or expose their true nature. Noise is how weak structures survive. Arguments, emotional exchanges, constant communication, these keep unstable dynamics alive. Silence starves them. When you stop responding emotionally, the other side is forced to confront itself. Many cannot. They escalate, they provoke, they accuse. Each escalation reveals insecurity. Each accusation exposes motive. You gain information without spending a word. Distance works the same way. Physical distance, emotional distance, psychological distance. Distance restores perspective. When you are too close to chaos, everything feels urgent. When you step back, urgency dissolves into patterns. Patterns are easier to control than emotions. Distance turns reaction into observation. Strategic withdrawal is not retreat. Retreat is driven by fear. Withdrawal is driven by clarity. Retreat runs from pressure. Withdrawal lets pressure burn itself out. There is a difference. The cold man does not flee the battlefield. He steps back to higher ground where the battlefield can be seen clearly. Most conflicts are sustained by proximity. Constant access fuels entitlement. Immediate responses encourage disrespect. Over-availability teaches others that you are reactive and reachable at any moment. The moment you remove instant access, dynamics shift. People either respect the boundary or expose their dependency on control. Both outcomes benefit you. Silence also interrupts manipulation. Manipulation requires engagement. Emotional hooks need response. Provocation needs reaction. Guilt needs explanation. When you do not respond, the hook has nothing to attach to. The manipulator becomes visible. They talk more. They pressure harder. They reveal intent through persistence. You remain still. This is why silence makes people uncomfortable. Silence forces introspection. It removes the distraction of exchange. Most men fear silence because they confuse it with emptiness. The cold man understands silence as space. Space allows clarity. Clarity allows strategy. There is also a deeper layer here. Silence protects your internal narrative. When you speak emotionally, you often say things you must later defend. Defense locks you into positions that may no longer serve you. Silence keeps your options open. Open options are power. The man who can still choose has not lost. Distance also protects identity. Under pressure, people try to define you through reaction. They label, they provoke so they can name you: angry, weak, defensive, emotional. When you do not react, labeling fails. Without reaction, their story collapses. You remain undefined and therefore uncontrollable. Many men feel the urge to correct misunderstanding. This urge is dangerous. Most misunderstandings are not accidents, they are tools. When someone benefits from misunderstanding you, clarification gives them leverage. Silence denies it. Let actions speak later, or let absence answer permanently. Strategic withdrawal also prevents unnecessary battles. Not every confrontation deserves your energy. Some conflicts exist only to drain you. Engaging validates them. Withdrawing invalidates them. The cold man chooses battles by outcome, not ego. He does not fight to feel strong. He fights to gain position. There is power in letting things end without explanation. Explanations invite negotiation. Negotiation invites compromise. Compromise under pressure often leads to regret. Clean endings preserve internal order. They also teach others that access to you is conditional, not guaranteed. Silence under pressure also trains discipline. It is difficult to stay quiet when provoked. The body wants release. The ego wants recognition. Resisting these urges strengthens self-command. Every time you remain silent when reaction is expected, you reinforce control. Control compounds. Distance further reveals truth. People behave differently when they think you are gone. They reveal loyalty, intentions, and priorities when they believe there are no consequences. Withdrawal creates a test environment. Those who respect you remain consistent. Those who do not expose themselves. You learn without confrontation. This is why cold men are often accused of being distant or aloof. In reality, they are selective. They understand that access is currency. Give it freely and it loses value. Guard it wisely and it becomes leverage. Distance is not disconnection, it is calibration. Silence also prevents escalation. Emotional exchanges spiral. One word becomes 10. 10 become a narrative. Narratives become positions. Positions become wars. Silence breaks the chain early. The conflict dies from lack of fuel. You conserve energy for battles that matter. There is a final truth here most men resist. Sometimes the strongest move is to do nothing and let time act on your behalf. Time exposes lies. Time weakens false urgency. Time dissolves emotional manipulation. The man who can wait without anxiety often wins without fighting. Silence, distance, and withdrawal are not defensive tactics. They are filters. They remove what cannot survive without your attention. What remains is real. What collapses was never solid. In the next section, we will confront fear directly. How cold men dismantle fear internally. Why fear loses power when observed instead of resisted. And how mastering fear completes the transformation into someone who cannot be rushed, intimidated, or controlled. Number 4, dismantling fear at the root. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is the signal. The problem is not that fear appears, it always will. The problem is obedience. Most men confuse fear with authority. They feel it, and they move as if commanded. This is how fear gains control without force. The cold man learns a different relationship with fear. He listens without obeying. He observes without reacting. He lets fear speak, then decides independently. Fear's primary weapon is urgency. It tells you that something must be done now. That delay equals danger. That hesitation equals loss. This is rarely true. Urgency is how fear hijacks judgment. When you feel rushed internally, pause externally. That pause breaks the spell. Fear weakens the moment it is forced to wait. Understand this. Fear lives in imagination, not reality. Reality is concrete. Fear is projection. It creates future scenarios and treats them as present facts. The cold man does not argue with these projections. He grounds himself in what exists now: breath, posture, environment, facts. Fear cannot survive sustained attention to reality. It requires narrative. Remove the narrative and fear collapses into sensation. Most men try to eliminate fear. This is a mistake. Elimination creates resistance. Resistance strengthens fear. What you resist persists. What you observe dissolves. The disciplined approach is exposure without reaction. You allow fear to be present while denying it control. This retrains the nervous system faster than any affirmation ever could. When fear arises, the body reacts first. Tight chest, shallow breath, muscle tension. These sensations are not commands, they are signals. Treat them like dashboard lights, not steering wheels. The moment you try to suppress them, they intensify. The moment you observe them calmly, they stabilize. This is not theory. This is biology. Fear also reveals attachment. You fear losing what you cling to. Status, approval, control, identity. The more attached you are, the louder fear becomes. Detachment lowers the volume. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop tying your survival to outcomes. When outcomes lose authority, fear loses leverage. Cold men do something most avoid. They rehearse loss mentally, not obsessively, strategically. They imagine worst-case outcomes calmly, without drama. They strip the fantasy of catastrophe and reduce it to logistics. What would remain? What would need to be rebuilt? This process removes fear's mystique. The unknown becomes known. The threat becomes manageable. Fear also thrives on isolation. When you feel alone with it, it feels absolute. But fear is impersonal. It is a system response, not a personal verdict. Cold men understand this. They do not take fear personally. They do not interpret it as weakness or destiny. They treat it as weather, uncomfortable, temporary, and survivable. Another critical shift occurs when fear is no longer avoided. Confidence becomes quieter. You stop over-preparing emotionally. You stop seeking reassurance. You stop explaining yourself to reduce anxiety. Instead, you rely on internal proof. Evidence gathered from surviving fear without collapse. This proof compounds. Each survived encounter weakens fear's credibility. Fear also exposes manipulation. Many people rely on fear to control others. Threats, deadlines, ultimatums, emotional pressure. These only work on men who fear loss more than they value autonomy. When fear no longer commands you, these tactics become transparent. You see the mechanism. Once seen, it loses power. There is a particular calm that emerges when fear is integrated instead of fought. It is not bravado. It is not recklessness. It is clarity under threat. This calm is unsettling to others because it cannot be rushed. People expect fear to produce reaction. When it does not, they lose psychological footing. Cold men also understand that courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is delayed reaction. It is the space between fear and action. That space is where judgment lives. Most men collapse that space instantly. Cold men widen it deliberately. The wider the space, the more control you have. Fear diminishes when you stop negotiating with it. Negotiation sounds like this. If I do this, will the fear stop? That question gives fear authority. The disciplined response is different. I will act correctly regardless of whether fear stops. When fear realizes it no longer controls outcome, it retreats. There is also a darker truth. Fear often protects ego more than survival. It keeps men small, cautious, compliant. It discourages risk not because risk is lethal, but because exposure is uncomfortable. The cold man accepts exposure. He understands that discomfort is the price of autonomy. Safety bought with obedience is not safety, it is containment. As fear loses control, your behavior changes subtly. You speak less under pressure. You move slower. You choose words carefully. You do not seek to convince. You do not rush to secure approval. These changes are not cosmetic. They signal internal alignment. People sense it. They respond differently. Eventually, fear becomes predictable. You recognize its patterns. You know when it will appear and what it will say. Predictability kills intimidation. The unknown terrifies. The familiar instructs. Once fear becomes familiar, it becomes manageable. This is the final stage of cold strength, not fearlessness, but sovereignty. Fear may enter, it may speak, but it does not decide. In the next section, we will bring everything together: how emotional control, patience, pressure, silence, and fear mastery combine into a single internal structure that does not fracture when life applies force. Number 5. The unbreakable internal structure. When all these elements come together, something changes at the core. Emotional control stops being a technique and becomes an identity. Patience is no longer forced. Silence no longer feels uncomfortable. Fear no longer feels urgent. Pressure no longer feels personal. What forms instead is an internal structure, quiet, heavy, and difficult to disturb. This is not confidence. Confidence fluctuates. This is stability. Most men build themselves outward first. Reputation, status, alliances, appearances. These things feel solid until force is applied. Then they crack. The cold man builds inward first. He constructs a core that does not depend on applause, reassurance, or continuity. When external structures fail, the internal structure remains intact. This is why collapse does not destroy him. It simply removes what was never essential. An unbreakable internal structure is not rigid. Rigidity breaks. It is adaptive. It absorbs pressure without losing shape. When attacked, it does not counterattack emotionally. It redistributes force. When stressed, it does not rush to restore comfort. It stabilizes first, then adjusts. This internal architecture is built through repetition, not intention. You earn it by surviving pressure without self-betrayal. Self-betrayal is the real fracture point. It happens when you act against your long-term interests to relieve short-term discomfort, when you speak to reduce anxiety, when you react to protect ego, when you compromise standards to avoid tension. Each betrayal weakens structure. Each resisted impulse reinforces it. Over time, the difference becomes massive. This structure changes how you relate to the world. You stop needing control over people. You stop trying to manage perception. You stop explaining yourself into exhaustion. Instead, you let alignment do the work. When your internal order is strong, external order either aligns or exits. You no longer chase stability. You attract it through consistency. Pressure tests this structure constantly. Unexpected problems, disrespect, loss, uncertainty. These are not interruptions. They are stress tests. Each one asks the same question. Will you abandon yourself to escape discomfort? The cold man answers no, quietly, every time. That consistency compounds into something rare. Self-trust. Self-trust is the foundation of untouchability. When you trust yourself to remain composed, disciplined, and strategic under stress, you no longer fear situations. You no longer fear people. You no longer fear outcomes. Fear relies on uncertainty about your own reaction. Remove that uncertainty and fear loses leverage. This internal structure also clarifies priorities. Under pressure, weak men scatter, strong men narrow focus. You stop wasting energy on what you cannot control. You stop investing in unstable dynamics. You stop confusing motion with progress. Energy becomes precise. Precision increases effectiveness. Effectiveness creates quiet authority. Authority is misunderstood. It is not dominance. It is gravity. People feel it without explanation. They slow down around you. They choose words carefully. They hesitate before testing boundaries, not because you threaten them, but because your reactions are unpredictable and your standards are stable. Stability intimidates instability. This structure also changes how you experience solitude. Silence no longer feels empty. It feels restorative. Being alone no longer feels like lack. It feels like clarity. You are not dependent on constant stimulation to regulate emotion. You do not need distraction to avoid thought. This independence is dangerous in a world built on dependency. When your internal structure is solid, temptation loses strength, provocation loses appeal, drama loses flavor. You are no longer easily pulled into cycles that waste time and attention. Attention becomes sacred. Where you place it determines what grows. The cold man places it deliberately. There is a final shift that occurs here. You stop trying to be understood. Being misunderstood no longer feels threatening. You realize that clarity is not achieved through explanation, but through consistency over time. People either adapt to your boundaries or remove themselves. You do not force either outcome. This internal structure also protects you from false urgency. Crises lose theatrical power. Deadlines lose emotional weight. You see which pressures are real and which are manufactured. Manufactured pressure exists to control behavior. Real pressure exists to test competence. The cold man responds only to the second. Nothing here makes life easier. It makes you stronger. Strong enough that life does not need to be easy. That is the difference. Ease is temporary. Strength is portable. You carry it into every situation. It does not depend on environment. It does not disappear under stress. When this structure is in place, collapse becomes inconvenient, not catastrophic. Betrayal becomes informative, not traumatic. Fear becomes a signal, not a threat. Silence becomes a tool, not a void. Pressure becomes familiar, not overwhelming. This is the point where men become difficult to manipulate, rush, intimidate, or destabilize, not because they fight harder, but because there is nothing exposed to attack. The structure is internal, invisible, unavailable. In the next section, we will examine how this internal strength reshapes your outward behavior, how cold men move, speak, decide, and act in ways that quietly bend situations in their favor without force or display. Number 6. How cold men move, speak, and decide. When inner strength is real, it reshapes everything outward without effort. Movement changes first. Cold men move with economy, no wasted gestures, no restless pacing, no compulsive motion to discharge anxiety. Every movement has intent or it does not exist at all. Stillness becomes default, action becomes deliberate. This alone separates you from men who broadcast insecurity through constant motion. Speech follows the same law. Cold men speak less, but when they speak, words land heavier. They do not narrate their thoughts. They do not explain their emotions. They do not think out loud under pressure. Silence precedes speech, and that silence filters out weakness. What remains is precision. Precision is intimidating because it leaves no loose ends to attack. Most men talk to reduce tension. Cold men speak to shape outcomes. This difference is everything. Talking for relief leaks information. Talking for impact conserves power. When you remove emotional urgency from speech, you stop giving people access to your internal state. They cannot read you. When they cannot read you, they cannot steer you. Decision-making also transforms. Weak men decide to escape discomfort. Strong men decide to improve position. Comfort-based decisions feel good quickly and age badly. Position-based decisions feel heavy initially and age well. Cold men accept this trade without complaint. They choose long-term advantage over short-term relief instinctively. Another change appears in timing. Cold men are never early out of anxiety and never late out of avoidance. Their timing is intentional. They let others rush ahead and make mistakes. They let situations ripen. They understand that most outcomes are decided by when you act, not how forcefully you act. Timing is leverage disguised as patience. Observe how cold men respond when challenged. There is no spike in energy, no defensive posture, no need to win the moment. They absorb the challenge without reaction. This unsettles aggressors. Aggression feeds on resistance. When resistance is absent, aggression collapses into exposure. The challenger reveals insecurity. The cold man remains intact. Even conflict looks different. Cold men do not argue to win. They disengage to reposition. They do not escalate emotionally. They let consequences do the work. Where emotional men create noise, cold men create outcomes. Outcomes end discussions permanently. Social dynamics shift quietly. People begin adjusting around you. They become more careful with words. They hesitate before testing limits. They sense that reactions are not guaranteed. Uncertainty creates caution. Caution creates respect. Respect does not need to be demanded, it emerges naturally. Cold men also refuse to overcommit verbally. Promises are scarce, commitments are conditional. Words are not used to secure approval. They are used to mark reality. When a cold man says yes, it means something. When he says no, it ends something. This consistency builds a reputation that does not require defense. Another crucial shift. Cold men do not explain boundaries, they enforce them. Explanation invites negotiation. Negotiation invites erosion. Enforcement is silent and final. Access is removed. Time is withdrawn. Attention is redirected. No announcement is needed. The result speaks for itself. Their posture reflects this internal alignment. Not stiff, not dominant, grounded, balanced, present. The body is not braced for attack because the mind is not anticipating collapse. This posture communicates security without aggression. Others feel it instantly, even if they cannot articulate why. Cold men also handle praise differently. Praise does not inflate them because it does not define them. Compliments pass through without attachment. They do not chase validation or fear losing it. This emotional neutrality makes them difficult to manipulate with approval or disapproval. Flattery becomes ineffective. Criticism loses sting. This neutrality extends to success and failure alike. Wins do not create arrogance. Losses do not create panic. Both are processed as data. What worked, what failed, what needs adjustment. Emotion is acknowledged but not obeyed. This keeps judgment clean even when stakes are high. Decision fatigue disappears. When your internal structure is stable, decisions become simpler. You are not constantly negotiating with fear, ego, or insecurity. Choices align naturally with standards. When alignment exists, hesitation fades. Hesitation is born from internal conflict. Cold men resolve that conflict beforehand. They also walk away faster, not emotionally, but strategically. When something reveals itself as unstable, manipulative, or misaligned, cold men disengage without resentment. They do not try to fix what is not theirs to fix. They conserve energy for systems that reward discipline, not chaos. This is why cold men appear selective rather than social. They are not withdrawn, they are precise. Precision preserves strength. Overextension drains it. They understand that attention is finite and misplacement weakens structure. Even ambition changes. Cold ambition is quiet. It does not announce goals. It does not seek witnesses. It moves in silence and compounds privately. Loud ambition seeks validation. Cold ambition seeks results. Results speak louder than intention ever could. When setbacks occur, cold men do not spiral. They reduce variables. They stabilize routines. They return to fundamentals. Emotional men amplify chaos internally. Cold men compress it. Compression restores control. All of this creates a presence that bends situations without force, not through intimidation, not through manipulation, but through internal consistency so strong that instability cannot attach itself. Chaos slides off. Drama finds no grip. Urgency finds no purchase. This is how cold men become untouchable, not because nothing happens to them, but because nothing enters them without permission. The world can apply pressure, but it cannot penetrate the structure. In the next section, we will confront the final illusion that breaks most men, the need to be understood, accepted, or validated, and why releasing that need completes the transformation into true inner strength. Number 7, the death of the need to be understood. There is a final illusion that keeps most men psychologically weak, no matter how disciplined they appear on the surface. It is not fear. It is not emotion. It is not lack of intelligence or effort. It is the need to be understood, the need to be seen accurately, the need to be validated. This need quietly controls behavior more than any external threat ever could. Most men do not realize how much of their energy is spent trying to manage perception. They explain themselves, they justify decisions, they soften edges, they add context, they clarify intent. All of this feels reasonable, even mature. In reality, it is a form of submission. The moment you need to be understood, you give others authority over your internal state. Machiavelli understood this instinctively. He knew that the masses rarely understand power when they see it. They interpret strength through their own limitations. To seek understanding from them is to dilute yourself. The cold man accepts misunderstanding as the cost of autonomy. He does not correct narratives that do not serve him. He lets time and consistency do what explanations never can. The desire to be understood is rooted in fear of misjudgment, fear of being seen as wrong, cruel, arrogant, indifferent, or weak. But this fear assumes something false, that misunderstanding harms you. In truth, misunderstanding often protects you. When people misread you, they underestimate you. When they cannot categorize you, they hesitate. Hesitation creates space. Space creates leverage. Most people are not trying to understand you. They are trying to place you, to label you, to predict you, to control how you fit into their world. When you rush to explain yourself, you help them complete that task. You make yourself manageable. The cold man refuses this. He remains ambiguous until clarity benefits him. There is also a darker reality. Many people benefit from misunderstanding you. It justifies their behavior. It protects their ego. It maintains their narrative. Explaining yourself to such people is not only useless, it strengthens their position. Silence denies them that reinforcement. Let them believe what they need. Belief does not change your reality unless you react to it. Releasing the need to be understood changes how you speak. You stop overqualifying statements. You stop adding emotional padding. You stop anticipating objections. Your words become simpler, heavier, and fewer. You no longer speak to be liked or accepted. You speak to mark decisions. This makes communication cleaner and conflict shorter. It also changes how you listen. You stop listening for validation. You stop scanning conversations for approval or rejection. You listen for information only: tone, timing, motive. What is said matters less than why it is said. This shift alone elevates your situational awareness dramatically. Most men exhaust themselves defending versions of themselves that exist only in other people's minds. This is an unwinnable war. There are as many interpretations of you as there are observers. Trying to manage them all fragments identity. The cold man does not chase coherence in others' perceptions. He maintains coherence internally. That coherence eventually speaks for itself. Let go of the fantasy that clarity resolves tension. Often, clarity creates it. When you explain yourself, you invite judgment. When you stay silent, you deny it. Judgment requires data. Silence starves it. Over time, people either adjust to your presence or remove themselves. Both outcomes restore order. This detachment from validation also neutralizes praise. Praise no longer inflates ego because ego is no longer dependent on external reflection. Compliments are received politely and forgotten quickly. Criticism is evaluated for utility and discarded if irrelevant. Neither alters trajectory. This emotional neutrality is deeply unsettling to those who rely on approval to control others. Another shift occurs in relationships. You stop trying to be understood and start watching who understands you without explanation. These are rare people. They do not need convincing. They do not need justification. They observe patterns and respond accordingly. These are the only relationships worth depth. The rest remain functional or distant by design. This does not make you cold toward everyone. It makes you precise. Precision preserves energy. Energy compounds into power. When you stop leaking energy through explanation, you gain surplus. Surplus allows patience. Patience allows strategy. There is also a freedom that emerges here. You stop rehearsing conversations that will never happen. You stop correcting imaginary accusations. You stop defending yourself internally against voices that do not deserve presence. Mental noise drops. Focus sharpens. Life becomes quieter and more controllable. Misunderstanding also becomes a filter. Those who judge prematurely reveal themselves as impatient or insecure. Those who wait, observe, and ask questions reveal maturity. You do not need to test people aggressively. Your silence does it for you. The cold man understands that being misunderstood is not a flaw, it is camouflage. It allows movement without interference. It allows growth without scrutiny. It allows preparation without sabotage. Many of the strongest positions are built quietly, while others are busy explaining themselves. There is a final lesson here that completes the internal structure. You do not need to be seen correctly to act correctly. You do not need approval to move forward. You do not need consensus to be effective. When you internalize this, social pressure loses force. Shame loses leverage. Guilt loses teeth. You become difficult to herd, difficult to provoke, difficult to manipulate. Not because you resist loudly, but because you no longer need anything from the crowd. Independence at this level is rare. That is why it is powerful. When the need to be understood dies, something stronger takes its place: self-alignment. Decisions no longer require audience approval. Actions no longer require explanation. You know why you move. That is enough. This is the final threshold. Beyond it, there is no return to psychological dependency. Only refinement, only precision, only quiet strength that does not announce itself, does not seek recognition, and does not break under pressure. In the next section, everything will converge: the laws, the disciplines, the mindset, into a single governing code that defines how cold men live, act, and endure when everything else fails. Number 8, the governing code of inner strength. At this stage, nothing is theoretical anymore. What you have built is a governing code, an internal operating system that runs regardless of mood, circumstance, or external pressure. Codes are different from rules. Rules are followed when convenient. Codes are followed automatically. When pressure hits, you do not negotiate with yourself. You execute alignment. This code begins with a single premise. Internal order precedes external control. Most men invert this. They try to control outcomes, people, or perception first, hoping internal calm will follow. It never does. The cold man reverses the sequence. He stabilizes internally, then lets the external world rearrange itself around that stability. This alone eliminates most unnecessary conflict. The code also rejects urgency as a default signal. Urgency must be verified. Most urgency is manufactured by fear, by manipulation, by impatience, by others' lack of preparation. The cold man treats urgency like a claim that requires proof. If it is real, it will remain real after a pause. If it dissolves under delay, it was never legitimate. Another core principle is response over reaction. Reaction is reflexive and ego-driven. Response is deliberate and position-driven. The gap between stimulus and response is where your code operates. You widen that gap until instinct no longer hijacks behavior. This gap is not emptiness, it is command space. The code also enforces emotional economy. Energy is finite, attention is finite. The cold man spends both intentionally. He does not argue to feel right. He does not engage to feel seen. He does not chase resolution to feel calm. He invests only where return exists. Everything else is ignored without resentment. Resentment is explicitly rejected by the code. Resentment signals unresolved attachment. It keeps you psychologically tied to what you claim to have left behind. The cold man processes disappointment fully, then releases it. No rumination, no mental replays, no imaginary conversations. Closure is internal and immediate. Another law: standards replace expectations. Expectations create disappointment. Standards create clarity. When standards are violated, response is simple: distance, reduction, or removal. No explanation required. The code does not argue standards, it enforces them. This code also governs speech. Words are used sparingly and accurately. No overpromising, no emotional narration, no verbal inflation. When words lose weight, credibility follows. The cold man protects credibility by saying less and doing more. Over time, his silence becomes trusted more than others' declarations. Time is another governed asset. The code prioritizes long-term position over short-term relief. Decisions are evaluated by trajectory, not comfort. This makes the cold man appear slow to those chasing immediacy and decisive to those who understand compounding. Compounding is invisible in the moment and undeniable over time. The code also removes identity from outcome. Success does not validate the self. Failure does not invalidate it. Outcomes are feedback, not verdicts. This separation prevents arrogance after wins and despair after losses. Stability remains constant, only strategy adjusts. Fear is integrated into the code as a signal, not a stop sign. When fear appears, it is acknowledged, examined, and placed in context. Fear does not vote. It informs. This prevents paralysis and recklessness simultaneously. The cold man becomes calculated, not cautious. Pressure is treated as a diagnostic, not a threat. When pressure exposes weakness, the code responds with training, not shame. Shame wastes energy. Training converts exposure into upgrade. This is why cold men improve faster under stress, while others deteriorate. The code also includes selective visibility. Not everything you do needs to be seen. Not every intention needs to be declared. Visibility invites interference. Silence preserves autonomy. The cold man moves quietly until movement itself is unavoidable. There is also a principle of non-attachment to roles. Roles change, positions shift, labels expire. The cold man does not anchor identity to titles, relationships, or narratives. He anchors to capacity. Capacity travels with him, roles do not. The governing code eliminates the need to win emotionally. Being right is irrelevant. Being effective is everything. Many men win arguments and lose position. The cold man loses arguments and gains leverage. Ego is replaced by outcome. This code also governs recovery. When damage occurs, loss, failure, disruption, the response is immediate stabilization. Sleep, structure, routine, nutrition, movement. Emotional processing follows structure, not the other way around. This prevents spiral. Structure creates safety faster than emotion ever could. Finally, the code enforces self-loyalty. No action taken purely to avoid discomfort. No compromise that erodes long-term integrity. No performance for approval. This loyalty is quiet and absolute. Break it once, and the structure weakens.